I moved into the neighborhood 2 months ago. Quiet street, decent rent, and close enough to everything I needed. I wasn't expecting much from it. Just a place to breathe. My job kept me remote, and I didn't have much of a social life to begin with, but the neighbors were friendlier than I expected, especially the woman next door. Her name was Cynthia. Early 40s, stylish without trying. Always seemed like she had somewhere better to be, even when she didn't. The first time we spoke, she brought over a bottle of wine. Said it was a welcome to the block gesture. I thought she was just being polite. I had no idea. Her husband? Barely around. Traveled a lot for work, apparently. When he was home, he didn't talk much, just nodded in my direction if we crossed paths. Their marriage didn't look like much from the outside, but I didn't care enough to wonder. At a weekend barbecue, a few of us stood around the fire pit joking about dating apps. Someone asked what my type was, and I laughed and said, "Honestly, I don't mind older women. They usually know what they want and they don't play games." It was just a line. Something to fill the space. But Cynthia, who was standing just a few feet away, turned to me with this unreadable expression. Half smile, half something else. Later that evening, she stopped by to bring back the wine glasses. She stayed a little longer than necessary. Said her husband was out of town again. We talked about nothing in particular. Music, travel, her garden. She complimented my cologne. I told her I barely wore any. She laughed a little too long. From that point on, I started seeing more of her. She'd wave when I left for the gym, linger at the mailbox when I got back. One day she asked if I could help her carry some boxes into the garage. They weren't heavy. She just wanted the company. I told myself she was lonely. I told myself I was just being neighborly. But when she touched my arm as I handed her a box, held her fingers there a moment too long, I felt something shift. It wasn't overt. It was subtle, careful. But it was there. She started dropping hints, telling me how long her husband had been distant, how she felt invisible at home, how refreshing it was to talk to someone who actually listened. I listened, but I didn't know what to say. Part of me liked the attention. Another part of me knew this was a bad idea waiting to happen. One evening, I was working late. Headphones in, coffee in hand. A knock at the door pulled me out of the zone. I opened it to find her standing there. No makeup. Slippers. Hoodie over leggings. Her eyes looked tired. "I just needed to get out of the house," she said. She didn't wait for an invitation, just walked past me and sat on the couch like she'd done it 100 times. I stood there for a second before closing the door. I asked if everything was okay. She said they fought. Something about bills, work, the usual. But her voice cracked when she said it. I offered her a drink. She accepted. We sat in silence for a while, the kind that stretches out until someone decides to fill it or drown in it. She looked around the room like she was searching for something. Or maybe trying not to look at me. "I remember being your age," she said finally. "Everything feels possible. Nothing feels permanent." I nodded, not really sure what to say. She turned her head slowly and looked at me. Not casual. Not friendly. Something hung between us. Years, distance, expectation. She asked if I ever thought about settling down. I shrugged and said I hadn't met the right person. She smiled at that. Not with her mouth, just her eyes. Then she said, "Maybe you just haven't been looking in the right places." The way she said it, calm, deliberate, made it impossible to misunderstand. I didn't move. I didn't speak. She didn't either. Minutes passed like that. No sound but the low hum of the refrigerator. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. She stood up, smoothed her hoodie, and looked at me like she was waiting for something. I didn't give it. "Not yet." She walked to the door and stopped. Said, "Thanks for letting me sit here a while." Her voice was soft, but steady. She opened the door and stepped outside, then looked over her shoulder. "Good night." The door closed quietly behind her. I stood in the middle of the living room, glass still in my hand, drink untouched. I didn't move for a long time. Something had changed. I didn't know what to call it, but I felt it all the same. The next day, she waved at me from across the driveway like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just come into my house, said everything without saying anything, and left me unraveling. I waved back, pretending the same thing. But I knew. She knew. And whatever this was, it wasn't over. She didn't come over for the next 3 days. I told myself it was for the best, that maybe she'd realized how close we came to doing something we'd both regret.
But then she texted me.
Just one line. You home? 5 minutes later, she was at my door again. No explanations. No small talk. Just walked in, dropped her keys on the counter, and looked at me like she was waiting for me to stop pretending I didn't want this too.
I didn't say anything.
I just closed the door. She kissed me. There wasn't hesitation this time. It wasn't soft or gentle. It was years of frustration, guilt, loneliness, and heat poured into one reckless act. We didn't speak after. She got up, dressed quickly, and before she left, she whispered, "Don't tell anyone." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She was outside watering her plants, waved like always. I gave a short nod and went back inside. But inside me, nothing felt normal anymore. I knew what we did. She knew, and pretending otherwise only made it worse. I tried to avoid her. I ignored her texts, didn't respond when she lingered outside. But a week passed and she knocked again. Said she missed talking to me. Said she felt safe around me. I didn't tell her to leave. I didn't tell her no. I let her in again. It became routine. Not every day. Just when her husband was gone, or they fought, or she said she couldn't take the silence in her house anymore. She never stayed long. Just long enough to feel seen, touched, wanted. She made me feel wanted too. I told myself it was just physical. Just two adults crossing a line they shouldn't have. But that was a lie. I started to think about her even when she wasn't around. I noticed the scent she left on my pillow. I caught myself smiling when I saw her name on my phone. This wasn't nothing anymore. She started opening up more. Said she felt like a ghost in her own home. Said she hadn't been touched like that in years. Said I reminded her what it was like to be desired. I listened, but part of me felt uneasy. Like she was building a story around us that didn't exist. She began talking about leaving him. Not directly, but hints. I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to just start over. I didn't encourage her, but I didn't stop her either. I didn't know what I wanted. It started getting riskier. One time, we were in my kitchen when we heard a car pull into her driveway. She panicked, ran out the back door. Texted me later. That was close. I knew we were playing with fire, but I couldn't stop. Neither could she. It wasn't just the physical part anymore. She started calling me late at night, whispering into the phone like she was hiding in her own house. She said I made her feel alive. That she looked forward to seeing me more than anything else. I didn't realize how deep in I was until I felt something close to jealousy when I saw her with her husband on their porch one evening. He was laughing. She was pretending. I tried seeing someone else. Met a girl from a dating app. She was nice.
Pretty.
We had drinks, talked, even kissed. But my mind kept drifting. When she leaned in, all I could think about was how Cynthia tasted, how she touched the back of my neck. I didn't call the other girl again. Cynthia noticed. Asked me if I was seeing anyone. I said no. She smiled like she was relieved. Then she said something that stuck with me. I don't want to share you. That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't belong to her. She didn't belong to me. But we were already tangled in something too real to define and too broken to admit. One afternoon, we were in bed, and she traced her fingers across my chest and asked, "Do you think we're bad people?" I didn't answer. I didn't know. She said she used to think she was a good wife, someone who tried. Now, she wasn't sure who she was anymore. I told her I didn't think she was bad. That people break when they're not seen. She looked at me like I understood something no one else had. But I didn't. Not really. I was just falling deeper into something I didn't know how to stop. I started feeling paranoid. Every knock on the door made me flinch. Every time I saw her husband's car, I'd close the blinds. Once, I thought I saw him looking directly at my window. My heart pounded so loud I had to leave the house for a walk just to calm down. I told Cynthia we should slow down, that it was getting dangerous.
She didn't respond well. Said she thought we were past that.
Said she'd never felt this connected to anyone. I didn't know how to say what I was thinking, that maybe we were confusing escape with love. She cried that night. I'd never seen her cry before. She asked if I regretted it. I told her I didn't, but I was lying to her and to myself. What I regretted was not stopping it sooner, before it became this thing I couldn't control. But even after that conversation, we still saw each other. Slower, quieter, but still. She'd show up at odd hours, whisper that she missed me. I'd let her in, even when I knew I shouldn't. Every time, I swore it would be the last. Every time I failed. This wasn't a love story. It was a slow-motion crash. And I could feel it coming. I just didn't know when or how hard. I started seeing cracks in everything. Cynthia became more demanding, less careful. She didn't knock anymore. She just walked in. She'd sit at my table, drink from my coffee mug, talk about things like she belonged there. Like I belonged to her. The thrill was gone, replaced by something heavier. Her husband was home more often. He'd nod at me when we crossed paths, same as always, but it started to feel different. Tighter. Like maybe he knew something, or maybe I just couldn't look him in the eye anymore. I started taking side routes to avoid passing their house. I didn't need proof to feel watched. Cynthia began talking like we were in something real. She said things like, "If it were just us," or "I wonder what it'd be like waking up next to you every day." I laughed it off, but she didn't. Her eyes would drop, and her voice would go quiet. She wasn't fantasizing, she was planning. I told her we needed space. She stared at me like I'd just betrayed her.
Space for what? She said.
We're already here. We've already done it. You think it matters now. I told her we were losing ourselves. She said maybe that's what we needed, to lose the parts of us that kept us miserable. The next day, she showed up again like we hadn't talked. She kissed me hard, fast, desperate. I pulled back. She looked angry. "You said you wanted me," she said. "Now what? You're scared?" I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say anymore. That night, her husband parked earlier than usual. I saw his car outside just after Cynthia had left. My stomach dropped. I waited, watching from the window.
He didn't get out for a while. Just sat there.
Then finally walked up to his front door and went inside. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. A week passed. Then 2. She stopped coming over. I thought maybe it was done. Maybe the guilt had finally caught up to her. I tried convincing myself it was good, that we needed the break, that maybe the damage hadn't reached the surface yet. I was wrong. I was walking out to get groceries when I saw her husband in his driveway, just standing there, looking straight at my house. When I nodded, he didn't nod back. He didn't smile, just stared. And then he said, "Busy lately?" I froze. Said something stupid, like, "Yeah, work's been nonstop." He smiled. "Right," he said, "work." The next time I saw Cynthia, it wasn't at my place. It was at the store. She looked different. Distant. She smiled like nothing had changed. I asked if everything was okay. She said, "We're working on things." That was it. Nothing more. She looked over her shoulder, like someone might be watching, and walked away. The silence after that was worse than anything else. I didn't know if she told him. I didn't know if he found out another way. But the energy shifted. I could feel it in the air, in how people looked at me on the street, how the neighbors' conversations got quiet when I walked by. Rumors move fast on small streets. I started avoiding home, staying out later, walking longer. Every shadow looked like accusation. Every quiet glance felt like judgment. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. I kept replaying every moment, wondering where it all started to break. She texted me once more. Just one line. "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time. Didn't reply. What was there to say? We crossed a line and tried to build a world on the wrong side of it. I didn't see her after that. Her house stayed quiet. Her husband's car was always there. One day I saw them leaving together, both dressed up, laughing. I stood at my window like a ghost, watching what looked like a happy couple. It didn't feel real. It felt staged, forced, but it didn't matter. They were healing. I was left with the pieces. I started cleaning obsessively. Rearranged furniture. Threw out the mug she used. Burned the blanket she always wrapped around her shoulders. I told myself I was cleansing the space. But it didn't feel clean. It felt hollow. One evening, someone knocked. My chest tightened. I opened the door slowly. It was her husband. He asked if we could talk. I stepped aside.
He didn't yell.
He didn't accuse. He just sat and stared for a long time. Then he said, "I know." I stayed quiet. He nodded. "I've known for a while." My throat went dry. He looked exhausted. "I wanted to hate you," he said. "Still might. But I wanted to hear it from you." I told him I was sorry. That it was a mistake. That I let something go too far and didn't know how to stop it. He laughed once, bitter and sharp. "You knew exactly how," he said. "You just didn't want to." He left without a fight. No threats. No fists. Just disappointment, like I'd failed a test I never knew I was taking. After he left, I didn't turn the lights back on. I sat in the dark until morning. Nothing made sense. Nothing felt solid anymore. I realized I hadn't just betrayed him. I'd betrayed myself, too. Trust is a fragile thing. Once you drop it, even if you pick it up again, it's never the same. I broke something that wasn't mine to touch. And now, I was just one more reason two people might never find their way back to each other. The fallout didn't come all at once. It came slowly in fragments. A neighbor who used to wave now just walked by. The guy from across the street, who once invited me for beers, hadn't said a word in weeks. People noticed. They always do. Even if no one said anything, I could feel it, subtle shifts in tone, looks held a little too long, conversations that stopped when I walked near. I didn't see Cynthia again. Not for weeks. Her house stayed quiet, blinds drawn most of the time. Her husband still came and went. Sometimes alone, sometimes with her. They didn't speak to me. Neither of them looked in my direction. But I always looked at them. I couldn't help it. Some part of me still wanted, I don't even know what. Closure? Forgiveness? A second chance? Maybe I just wanted to feel less like the villain. I started seeing my own reflection differently. Not just metaphorically. Literally. I'd catch myself in the mirror and pause. I didn't like the person looking back. Not because of guilt alone, but because I didn't recognize him. He looked tired, disconnected, worn down by something he willingly walked into and now couldn't walk out of without leaving a trail of damage. I got a text from an unknown number. No name. No intro. Just, "Do better." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I knew exactly who it was from. And I couldn't argue. I just stared at those two words for a long time. The simplicity of them hit harder than any insult could. I tried moving on. I even considered leaving the neighborhood. I'd only been there a few months. It wasn't like I had roots. But running would have only confirmed everything people already suspected. And more than that, I didn't want to give up my life just because I made a mess of one part of it. Still, nothing felt the same. I deleted her number. Archived our messages. I kept the final text, though. That one stayed. Maybe as a reminder. Maybe as punishment. Every so often, I thought about what would have happened if we'd stopped earlier. Before it got physical. Before it got emotional. But I knew better than to play that game. The truth is, we wanted it. We sought it. It wasn't an accident. It was a choice. Again and again. Even when we knew better. I wasn't in love with her. That's the part that stung the most. Not because I wished I was, but because it made what happened feel even more hollow. If I had fallen in love, at least there would have been something noble buried in all the wreckage. But this wasn't that. It was escape. It was attention. It was two people who should have known better pretending they were entitled to something secret, something stolen, just because the world hadn't given them what they thought they deserved. I didn't forgive myself right away. Still haven't, not completely. But I did start rebuilding. Quietly. Slowly. I focused on work. Got back into running. Reached out to a few friends I'd been ignoring. Not to confess anything, just to reconnect with something that didn't feel tainted. One evening, I got another message. This time it was from Cynthia. Just her name at the top and one line beneath it. He left. I stared at it. No emotion hit me. No guilt. No hope. Just a flat kind of silence. I didn't reply. I wasn't going to ask what she wanted. I wasn't going to try to fix anything. That part of my life was over. And I knew if I let it crack open again, it would only spiral. She sent another message a day later. I didn't tell him everything. Just enough. I put my phone face down and walked away. She was still playing with fire. Still writing her version of the story, just like I had once. Only now, I wasn't interested in being a character in it. Weeks passed. I didn't hear from her again. One morning, I saw her walking alone, earbuds in, sunglasses on. She looked over at my house but didn't stop.
Didn't wave.
Just kept walking. It felt final, and for the first time, I was okay with that. I stopped looking out the window for her. I stopped flinching every time someone walked by. Life didn't snap back to normal, it never does, but it found a new rhythm. One I could live with. I met someone months later. It was slow, cautious. I told her I wasn't looking for anything serious. She said the same. We went for coffee. Talked about books. Music. Nothing heavy. I didn't tell her anything about what had happened. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But something about sitting across from someone new, someone untouched by my past, felt like breathing again. The biggest lie we tell ourselves when we're caught in something like that is that we can control it, that we can separate emotion from desire, that we can walk a line without crossing it. But the truth is, once you start justifying what shouldn't be happening, you've already crossed. Every moment after that is just damage control. I don't miss her. I don't hate her. I understand her. That's what makes it complicated. We both filled a gap for each other. Temporary scaffolding on a cracked foundation. But scaffolding doesn't last. It holds you up just long enough to make you think you're okay, then it collapses. And when it does, all you're left with is the fall. I live differently now. Slower. More honest, even when it's uncomfortable. I don't chase escape the way I used to. I let myself feel boredom, loneliness, frustration. I don't run from them because I know where that road leads. Sometimes I still think about her. Not out of longing, more like memory. Like an old scar you notice in the mirror and remember how you got it. You don't miss the pain. You just remember the lesson. That's the thing about infidelity.
People think it's about sex.
Or attention. Or thrill. But it's really about avoidance. Avoiding the truth. Avoiding yourself. Avoiding what it takes to be honest about what's missing and what you're not brave enough to fix. I learned that the hard way. And I paid for it in silence, in shame, in the quiet disconnection that follows when the high wears off and you're left standing in the wreckage you created. But I'm still here. Still moving forward. Not proud. Not looking for redemption. Just someone who made a choice and finally understands what it cost.